Thomas is a tank engine. He has 6 small wheels, a short stumpy boiler, a short stumpy funnel, and a short stumpy dome. Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here. At time of recording this, it is Wednesday the 9th of October 2024. Not sure when this video is going up, but hopefully sometime shortly afterwards. And today we celebrate a special television anniversary, the 40th anniversary of the first episode to air of the children's television programme Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends. This little blue tank engine has been on our screens for now 40 years in various different forms, with the original TV series starting off with models in 1984 with the first episode, Thomas and Gordon, airing on the 9th of October. The model and later CGI series, which would span Thomas and Friends, would then run until January 2021 in the United Kingdom, a bit earlier in the United States and most of the other international countries. But the series would be formed of several series under the models, 12 series in total, the last one using a bit of CGI as well, and then 12 CGI series. The first series aired in 1984, the second in 1986, the third 1991 to 92, the fourth in 1994 to 95, the fifth in 1998, and then starting in 2002 there would be a yearly series, starting with the sixth series. Some series would lap over years, of course, whilst others would be in just the plain years. For example, the final series, Series 24, the third and final of the Big World Big Adventures series, is that the last three was 2020 to 21, at least for the UK. So for nearly 40 years, this little blue puffball, as Diesel 10 would call him in the 2000 film Thomas and the Magic Railroad. So this little blue tank engine has been on our screens more or less for 40 years. Coming to the United States as well in 1989 for a short while as part of a TV variety series called Shining Time Station for a few years, and then later on its individually. And then Japan got the series in 1990, and it was thanks to them that Series 3 got made, in part Fuji Television co-funded Series 3. As well as the 24 series, it also has a theatrical film, Thomas and the Magic Railroad, which came out in 2000, and 13 direct-to-video TV movies / specials, Calling All Engines in 2005, and then a yearly one from 2008 to 2018, concluding with the Wubba Big World Big Adventures film, which serves as the pilot to the rebrand of the series for what ended up being the final three of the original run. There was also an additional special in 2015 to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the Railway series books that this series initially was based on, and the characters are based on or inspired by the characters from the books by the Reverend Wilbert Awdry, and later books and stories by his son Christopher Awdry. The initial run of Reverend Wilbert Awdry books started in 1945, in May 1945 to be precise, so those will be celebrating its 80th anniversary next year. So it's quite a bit of exciting time as the TV series aired just under half a year away from the 40th anniversary of the books. The series also has 2 spin-offs, well, one official and one sort of sibling show. The sibling show being 1989's Tugs, which only lasted about 13 episodes, even though there was planned for more, but that didn't happen. And similarly, the official spin-off series, Jack and the Pack, which was initially filmed alongside Series 7, but once Hit Entertainment bought the series, and they already owned Bob the Builder, another successful children's series, which was also really bloody brilliant back in the day. So because Jack in the Pack was a competition series with the Bob the Builder, and then the people who owned Bob the Builder bought Thomas, then Jack in the Pack was initially scrapped, but then about what was filmed was later re-released with the style of the series at the time when they released the spin-off, as opposed to at the time of when it was filmed. And since 2021, the series has been rebooted under Thomas and Friends All Engines Go, which is a different series to the model/CGI series that came before it, and is aimed at a much younger audience than that series had been. Even more so than the Hit Entertainment period of owning Thomas, between purchasing the series and before Mattell bought it, bought Hit Entertainment. So back those series 8 to 16 did feel like they were being aimed towards babies, toddlers. So All Engines Go is being aimed at a similar age group to series 8 to 16, as opposed to a more general audience that series 1 to 7 was aimed at, with primarily kids, but especially the younger kids, but the series that everybody could enjoy, parents and adults, just like the books. And series 17 to 21 tried to recapture quite a bit of that magic. Even if it was still younger kids centric, it was still trying to be appealing to a grander audience. Wilbert kind of toned it down to be more focused on the younger kids, but there were still hints and glimmers to the series 17 to 21 direction, even if it was kind of under the more corporate stuff that Mattell was trying to push. Now, some of that was good and good intentioned, but it did have a negative effect on the show in places. And like consistency in the Star Wars sequels, which I like, by the way, I really like the Star Wars sequels, but like the consistency in those films, I think the direction of how the series displayed the more positive angles could have been woven in better. But as it happened, the more negative angles kind of took place in terms of quality, which is why the reboot happened. Personally, not huge on the reboot, but I don't hate it. I haven't seen much of it in like 2 or 3 years, though. So, like, I've watched a little bit of it, but not seen much of it in a few years. However, I have managed to watch every episode of the TV series up to series 23, and I think might have seen every episode of 24, or at the very least, the majority of it. I'm not sure if I have finished that one yet. I have to double check. If I haven't, I'll have to. I haven't seen all the specials yet. Seen Tale of the Brave, which was bloody brilliant, and called it All Engines, which I liked it when I was younger, back when it was airing, and I did a review of that as well as Magic Railroad back in 2020 on the Retro channel. It's got its moments, but for the most part, it's pretty bad, and it's got some pointless learning segments that should have been included on the DVD as an extra, rather than forcibly added into the movie. I saw King of the Railway at the cinema last August, a special screening by View, and that was great. It's not the most interesting story, but for the beginning of what's considered the Brenner era, or the Renaissance of the series, under head writer Andrew Brenner, after Mattell bought the series, but before the rebrand. The Renaissance, as it's known as, because it's sort of a renaissance for the series following the Hit era, or eras, really. But basically back to basics, Thomas, after all of that. Back to how it was like, or near enough to how it was like under Britt Allcroft's leadership, or harking back to the books. And yeah, King of the Railway was a good start. It was you start with a okay, but not perfect, but also not bad start to the era. And of course, I've also seen Magic Railroad, which not many people like, but I actually thought it's fine. I think it's fun. I understand the magic aspect possibly did ruin the perception of the show, and ever since then, the perception of the series has kind of gone down with the public, especially after Hit Entertainment bought it and turned it into the aforementioned baby focus series, more aimed at toddlers and babies. And despite series 2017 to 21's efforts, maybe didn't bring that many people round on that, and sadly, I think that's why heads at Mattell have that logic and thinking when they did Wubba and more so with the reboot. But despite that, we have 7 really great series of the model series and 5 really great series of the CGI series to enjoy. And the other 12, it's some of them have their moments. Like series 8 has a couple of good episodes, and series 22 to 24 have their moments as well. I like them a bit more than most people do. There's quite a bit of bad, like series 12 to 16 is just the worst of the series. 16 is better than 14 and 15, but bottom 5 series are 12 to 16, and then probably between 9 and 11 would be next. But yeah, the best series are, of course, the first 5 series. The original model series is pre-Magic Railroad, and the absolute best was, of course, Series 5. But Series 4 is also very close. Those series are the best on storytelling and the best on visuals, visual aspects. Series 3 also gets some points there as well. And Series 2 and Series 1 are, of course, the ground that the series was built up on. Series 5 is my personal favourite of the show. It was all original stories as opposed to the previous series where it was either based on stories by the Awdrys or a mixture of stories from the Awdrys and original scripts or magazine stories for the third series. After Series 4, though, they didn't adapt any more stories or base any on existing audio works out of respect for the late Reverend Wilbert Awdry, who passed away in 1997, except for the Adventure Begins special, the 70th anniversary special in 2015, which was basically a CGI movie remake of the first couple of episodes of Series 1 based on the first 2 books, the first 8 stories from the Railway series, and the 3 episodes of Series 20 that focused on the small railway engines, which were based on some of the stories from their book. By the way, holiday I had earlier this year, we went to the Ravenglass and Eskdale Railway, which was the main inspiration for the small railway engines book and characters. So that was great. Going on that line that mainly inspired that railway. And I mean, there's some bits in the illustrations that don't quite line up with Ravensglass and Eskdale, like the Scarlory one does with the Talaquin, which I want to go on. But yeah, maybe Awdry having Extravaganza 5 next year. We'll see, or 6. Like how I probably won't see Lupin the Third Castle Cagliostro at Anime Scotland this year. I'm not sure if I'll get to go to a Awdry Extravaganza soon, but we'll see how it goes. I'm not sure when I got into the series or what the first episode was. I remember we watched old Thomas videos that my cousins had at my nanny's house, my grandmother's, maternal grandmother to be precise. There was a couple of videos there. One of the ones I watched a lot was the 18-episode Christmas collection. I say Christmas collection, it was mostly a mixture of episodes, a collection of episodes from Series 1 to 4, but like on a YouTube or audio a mixtape where you randomize the playlist. The episodes were mostly not necessarily random, but kind of in a random order. Like you don't have episodes from Series 1, Series 2, Series 3, and Series 4 kind of in order. You start off with some Series 3, then you might go back to Series 2, then you might go to Series 4. Actually, did it have any Series 1s? I'm not quite sure. It might have had some Series 1s. But mostly 2, 3, and 4. So you start off with Series 3, then maybe there's a couple of some Series 2s, and then maybe there's some Series 4s, and then maybe some more Series 3. So it's kind of like a mixture of episodes. As well as also a Christmas song, which didn't have the best audio quality, because it was with some Beaver Scouts from 4 Marks in Hampshire. Was it 4 Marks, or was it No, it was Southampton. They went to 4 Marks Station on the Watercress line, near to where the Reverend Wilbert Awdry lived. It was a Southampton Beaver group. But the song, I think, was recorded at their hall or at a hall, and the sound quality is not quite as good, especially when trying to match it up with them at the station. But yeah, that was a tape we watched a lot, because it was probably the one with the most episodes on. The episodes of the series up to Series 7 were only about 5 minutes, including the titles and end credits. They went to about 9 minutes, not including the titles and the end credits. After that, maybe a little bit down to 7 for a short while, and then back to 9 episodes, and then back again to 7 for Wubber. 7 or 8. and then they were 10 or 11 minutes with the additional of the roll call song and the titles, plus also the other bits the Brother era added on for those series. But for the initial first 7 series, they were only the episodes were only 5 minutes each, including the titles, before going to 10 or 11, including titles, roll call song, and the other Brother stuff for those series. So the fact that we had 18 5-minute episodes on one video tape, it was VHS by the way, plus a 2 or 3 minute song, as well as also there was a really cool trailer of the video company that produced the videos. It had a trailer for some of the stuff that it did, starting with Thomas and then talking about other ones like Sooty, Rosie and Jim. It was a good trailer, but of course the Thomas bits were the bits I was most interested in, and that was the first one, so that was great. And then yeah, having 18 5-minute episodes, 12 is an hour, 12 episodes is an hour, so it's about an hour and a half of Thomas on one videotape, whilst most of them only did about 6, maybe 8 episodes, which is about half an hour, 40 minutes. So the fact that you get this videotape was 90 minutes of Thomas, 18 episodes over 3, maybe 4 series, a song, and a really cool trailer for the video company making it. That's like 95, 96 minutes of great content. So for the most part, I mean, like I said, the song wasn't the best, but it's still nice to have. So yeah, have about 96 odd, an hour and a half of great Thomas content and some other bonus stuff. That one we watched a lot. That was just play the tape and you don't have to change it for an hour and a half more with that trailer and the song. You could just sit back and watch a whole bunch of episodes, like basically binge watching. Well, home video basically was binge for TV, was binge watching before streaming became a thing. You binged stuff on video and DVD and Blu-ray. We learned about that at university. How box sets became the initial binging mode before streaming, and even VHS helped with that, because you could, like with Thomas, you could put a bunch of episodes onto a VHS and you just binge watch it. Like I said, for this particular one I'm talking about was an hour and a half. 18 episodes told by the wonderful Ringo Starr from the Beatles fame, and later the late Michael Angelis. Rest in peace, you brilliant man. It was so good watching 18 episodes back to back. But no, it wasn't just those 18 episodes. I think I saw the majority of the first 4 series on those videotapes. I think 5 was a little bit less than 1 to 4, but series 1 to 4 definitely was formed from those videotapes, and especially 2, 3, and 4. And it was just, they were so great, especially that Christmas one. Fantastic. And around series 6, series 7 time is when I got the DVDs of those ones, and maybe watching on telly as well. Definitely saw Magic Railroad. We definitely had that on VHS. I used to watch that a lot when I was very young. Must have driven my parents insane. Especially if I would borrow their bedroom TV and VHS player and just play the movie one couple times out of the way. Must have driven them a bit insane now and again. Calling all engines, I remember having both the VHS, which was at my nan's, and the DVD, which would be at home, which worked pretty nicely. You'd have the DVD for home and the VHS at grandmother's, and you could watch either or, depending how it was. I don't think we got many of the DVDs or VHSs from the hit era, maybe Series 8, Series 9, as well as Calling All Engines. I think with those, kind of probably just watched them on telly, but I was come 2006, 2007, when Series 10, Series 11 would be airing, I was starting to move away from the series. But 2006, I did have one last major part of my younger days fandom event that kind of, like, I suppose if I kind of drifted away from the series not very long afterwards, then that was like one of the last, if not the last, big celebratory thing. There was two, in fact, there's two notable events at the time, but okay, one of them I can't quite remember fully, but I remember one time, about 2004, 2005, we went up to Birmingham, I think the NEC, to see a Thomas on stage show where they had the sheds and tracks and some mini trains going around the tracks, and there was an original story. I can't remember the whole of it. I think someone has uploaded a version to a performance to YouTube, so I'd have to check that out. The other thing was that we'd been to the Nene Valley Railway a couple times, and they had their own Thomas, the first Thomas, not just the one that they used for Days Out with Thomas, which they must have started around the time that Hit brought the series, which I think is the best thing that came out of Hit, Days Out with Thomas, in the UK and abroad. Those would have been brilliant. But the Nene Valley Railway already owned their own Thomas engine that the Reverend W. Awdry bequeathed himself, like what named them. They made their own engine, then he bequeathed it. So they had their own Thomas, separate to the ones for the Day Out with Thomas ones. And actually, it might have even happened a bit sooner if they had one at the Watercress line in the mid-90s. Unless, again, they had their own one. And I distinctly remember that the 21st of May 2006 was Thomas's birthday big adventure. Because usually what used to be the case was that he ran from Wandsworth Station to Yeovil Junction and back, a little shuttle on that railway, whilst the big main engines that they run on the line would run to Peterborough and Nene Valley Station. Go look it up, it's all great. It's not quite the case now, certainly back in 2022 when we went back on the 21st of May that year. Thomas was undergoing an overhaul and they had another engine doing the shuttle as well. But I think they'd already changed it by then anyhow, even before Thomas went on to the overhaul. Although once his overhaul's done, they might get him back to do the Yarwell shuttle, as well as maybe later down the line, no pun intended, to do his big adventure thing. But back in 2006, Thomas's big once a year, I think it was once a year at least, it's certainly for that year, his big trip where he would make the full journey, not only to Yarwell, but also to Peterborough, Wansford to, I think it was Yarwell first, then back, and then on to Peterborough, and then back again. So that was when he was doing that. His one time where he would go all the way across down the line, starting at the main station, down to the one end, his usual end, and then all the way to the other end, and then back to the main station. And that, as I said, that was on the 21st of May 2006. That was my 7th birthday. So, yeah, so to kind of wrap up my love for the series, as it was probably I was moving away from it maybe when I was 7 or 8. I was probably moving away from it, but as I turned 7, that was what I wanted for my birthday treat. And that was, I mean, we had a bit of a birthday dinner the day before as well with some friends from school, but next day was the big one. That was like the birthday and the main birthday treat, the main event. It was brilliant. Or at least I remember it being brilliant at the time. Then 7-year-old me, on the day itself, having a birthday adventure with the Nene Valley Thomas, who was having his big birthday adventure. I think they did it on a Sunday around that time of the year for the next couple of years as well. So, but yeah, that was so good. I don't think I'll ever have as I love going on heritage railways. I love going on the main lines, but I don't expect they'll have a day like that where my birthday lands on the same day as a major heritage railway event like Thomas's big adventure on the Nene Valley Railway. And for all of you Blubber haters, yes, it was a better adventure than the Blubber stuff. That was so good, but regretfully, not very long after that, my attention and fanness for the series sort of moved away. I mean, there were still bits kind of there, still interests, but it wasn't really there anymore. I started to move away. By that point, I had also started in watching old Thunderbirds tapes that had been the videotapes that recorded Thunderbirds programs that were being repeated on BBC Two, which is odd because they used to be on ITV. I guess BBC Two managed to buy the rights to repeat the series for the 90s, which was also when they were popular. In the 90s was a resurgence of Thunderbird's popularity, much like how it was the peak of Thomas's popularity. So I was pretty much into Thunderbirds at that time anyway. More so, I think it was starting to elapse Thomas at the time. And then just under a week after going to Nene Valley Railway for Thomas's big adventure in 2006, on the following Saturday, I sat down and watched my first proper episode of Doctor Who. It wasn't the first one I'd ever seen, because I saw Rose End of the World and Christmas Invasion, or at least most of them, or parts of those episodes at least. Idiot's Lantern, maybe not the entire episode, but I definitely watched most of it. That was my first proper introduction to the series. And then Impossible Planet was the first one I think I watched start to finish. And then, yeah, I was hooked on Doctor Who from then. So that ended up becoming the big one. Thunderbird sort of faded down a little bit, and then so did Thomas around the same time. So those kind of went down a little bit. I think I was still interested for a bit, but then they kind of disappeared for a short while. Other things like Bob the Builder and Finding Sam, Postman Pat, and some of the other children's shows I was probably into at the time, I think have also kind of died down. And unlike Thomas and Thunderbirds, I don't think my fondness for those have resurgent as much as them. Like, I'm interested to maybe rewatch some of the older stuff, but as of right now, they haven't resurfaced as much. Yeah, Doctor Who became the big thing, and then around 2009, Harry Potter, and then about 2011, Star Wars, and then 2012, James Bond. 2014 was superheroes, and I think as I was getting older, I was getting into more stuff, more franchises, more stuff. Even, I'm getting into new stuff even as recent as like a few weeks ago. Like recently I got into Spy Family, the anime series. I've been interested to see it for a while, watched some clips and stuff, and went to see the movie in the cinema in April, in Japanese and in English. Actually, it was English first and Japanese. I would have watched it Japanese first, then English, but it was the way how the screenings were being shown. It was English first, and then a few Japanese after. And then started getting the books and the manga. I was like, okay, I need to start watching the bloody series now. After I signed up for Crunchyroll Premium. And I now watch the bloody series, and it's great. So yeah, I'm into Spy Family. One of my new ones that I got into recently. So I've been getting into more and more things as I go along, which I think is natural for people, and it's great. And now I am a big pop culture fan. There's still stuff I'm not worried about. I'm not worried about Game of Thrones. Sorry guys, not to worry. Stranger Things sounds cool, but I haven't got into that yet. And a couple of other Netflix and other big shows, like, I'm not so as worried about. But in terms of general pop culture, I am I'm kind of into it. Yeah, film and TV, and expanded media in some cases, mainly Doctor Who. But yeah, and I've even gotten a bit of interest in children's television, like how I watched the first series of the Tangled series a few months ago. I was on a bit of a Tangled kick at the time, Tangled the series, and Phineas and Ferb I got into in 2021, and I'm not ashamed to say it, but I got into My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, more so Equestria Girls end of 2021, and then Friendship is Magic in 2022. So I would say I'm a brony, but apparently I haven't got any of the merchandise apart from the 2017 movie and Rainbow Road Trip special DVDs. I maybe if those count as I guess they do count as merchandise, but if apart from those I haven't got any other merchandise. But if they do count, then I guess I am a brony. I think I'm a lot of things, actually, in fairness, because I'm into a lot of fandoms. Doctor Who is, of course, the big one. I'm a big Whovian and been so for what is now coming up to 18 and a half years. Bloody hell. That's like my fandom for the series is now come of age. But I'm not sure what my first fandom the first thing was that was my favourite thing was. It might have been Thomas, it might have been Bob the Builder, it might have been something else, and I can't remember. But while some things that I did love back in the day, I haven't had a resurgence in love yet, even though would like to, would be happy to, and I continue having the fond memories of those, and those will not be tarnished by either being an adult or any of the not so great stuff that came afterwards. But or maybe if my perceptions have changed on those older ones, but the feelings of really liking them back in the day, especially Bob the Builder, those will be the case. I think for what was my 3rd birthday or for some other event, I did it may have been a scout dinner thing. We had lunch or dinner at the Moorhen in Harlow, or just outside Harlow, and I had some Bob the Builder toys, and my Spud toy got dipped in some baked beans. And I sort of remember a picture and hearing the story of that, and having some toys and a Bob the Builder annual. So I think Bob the Builder must have been my 2nd favourite thing after Thomas at the time, and then that changed to Thunderbirds, which then might have become my favourite thing for a bit, and then Doctor Who came along. And then, since then, loads of other stuff: Harry Potter, Star Wars, James Bond, superheroes, and much, much more. I might throw in Star Trek between James Bond and superheroes as well, but that one's still kind of on the lesser side as some of those other fandoms. And yeah, I've gone ups and downs with those fandoms. Like, I'm not quite as into the Harry Potter series as much as I am anymore, mostly due to the author's views, but also is that the films of Fantastic Beasts not been as great as the older ones. And I'm not quite enthusiastic of having a new TV series. I mean, great, but it'd be more closely adapted to the original books. But the films were so great anyway. As much as they changed or deviated, they were such great films that I'm not quite as worried about having a new TV series, especially if it's going to be another 10-ish years to make all 7 seasons. Maybe more if they think books 4, 5, 6, and 7 need even more stories, more episodes, more time to tell them. That's why the last book got 2 films. It got adapted into 2 films, and they even considered it as far back as the 4th film. Yeah, my enjoyment for the Harry Potter series has kind of gone down a little bit because of the author's views, but I still retain fondness for the franchise as stories, as telling the stories, the creations, the creation itself. I distance from the creator, but I still enjoy the created stuff, the created art, the franchise, and yeah, it won't change any of my feelings on it from the past, of course. So yeah, the last film of the original 8 is still my 2nd favorite film of all time after Skyfall, the 23rd James Bond film. So Deathly Hallows Part 2 is still my 2nd favourite film of all time. But I am kind of just out of the fandom a little bit now. Similarly with Star Wars, I've kind of been in and out. Like last year I had a bit of an up, and then a bit more of an up earlier this year as well. So I've had ups, and other times I'm like still a fan, but I'm not like on a kick or anything, like I was like maybe last spring or earlier this year with the film re-releases. As I'm getting into things more, some old things get resurgence. Thunderbirds got a resurgence in 2015 after the brand new TV series Thunderbirds Are Go came out. That was brilliant. Went back and watched older episodes in the 2 puppet films and the live action film. I know most people don't like the live action film. I like it. It's fun. As are the 2 puppet films, but the original series is brilliant, and the new series manages to recapture that magic as well really nicely. It's a shame it only had 3 series, and it's a shame it took 5 years to air all of those series. And it's a shame one of those episodes couldn't actually be aired because of resemblance to a real-life disaster, and it was left out on one of the DVDs, but thankfully it was added as a bonus episode on another DVD for the next series. So one DVD would only have 12 episodes, one other DVD would have 14, and the others had 13. So come 2018, on another holiday, went to the Kent and East Sussex Railway in Tenterden, in Kent, and which also runs to Bodiam in East Sussex, and visited Bodiam Castle. So I was 19 then, and so it had been, let's say, about 10, 11 years since I probably dipped out of the Thomas fandom. I still had, maybe not watched episodes, but I did know, or maybe I did a few, but noticed some things like, for example, I was aware of the Series 12 using the CGI for the faces, and I didn't like how it was just one person still doing Michael Angelis for the UK, Michael Brandon for the US. And I didn't like how it was sort of just, it was one person doing the voices for the characters whilst the mouths were moving. I felt that didn't fit right. I think how it worked before, where they would still do the voices, but the mouths weren't moving, was better. And then when they got voice actors in to voice the characters for the CGI series, and the faces moved, but they all had their own individual voices, and the narrator would just did the narration, that worked so much better. So series 12 has got its own fair share of problems, but that was my big issue at the time with that, and it's still a big issue with that series. I still have. I think that kind of put me off the series going forward, was that I think my dad did watch some of the early CGI episodes once. I think there was the one with Spencer from series 15, which I was kind of keen to rewatch. When I rewatched the series. I think at the time I thought they all had the same voice as the narrator, but I guess I didn't pick that they had the individual voices by then. That's what I didn't notice. But I think that was an early morning for him, and he just watched it whilst waiting to go out and do something, or to go to work. It was just on, I guess. But come 2018, which was the year of the beginning of Blubber, but just before Blubber started, going back to that holiday in Kent, and a visit to the Kent and East Sussex Railway, and about a day or two before that, we had gone to the Dover Museum of Transport, and they had plenty of museum stuff, but there was also a model not a model railway, but like a Scalextric train set that you could play, and you could send some trains around. And one of them was Thomas with Annie and Clarabelle. I accidentally called Annie Annabelle at the time. Oh, that was embarrassing, especially after what would happen after the visit to Kent and East Sussex. My sister actually corrected me. Of all people, my sister corrected me. She's probably the one who cares about Thomas the least in our family. Probably. But yeah. So they had that there, and then it's these Kent and East Sussex. I think I might have seen a Day Out with Thomas poster there as well. And then later on, I was like, I want to rewatch Thomas. I'm gonna watch the series again. From the start, the episodes of the show. Haven't seen all the films yet. But yeah, 2018, summer of 2018, July. I started watching series 1 again. I started rewatching the series on YouTube, for the most parts, and yeah, it was brilliant just rewatching the series. Absolutely brilliant watching every episode going forward. Series 1, Series 2, Series 3, Series 4, Series 5. Oh, such good times. And then 6, 7, moving into hit era, but it's okay. Some of them are bad, but some of them are alright. 8, 9, 10, 11. And then we get to the start of Series 12, and memories of disliking the CGI faces moving, but with only one person doing all of the voices instead of individual actors. As great as Michael Angelis and Michael Brandon are, more so Angelis, although not that series. Both of them weren't really that into that series, really. Sad to say, but yeah, just having the one voice for all the characters whose mouths were speaking now, instead of the more stilled faces with the expressions, where it works so much better. But now that they were all moving, it was odd, and I kind of put off watching. I watched 2 episodes, and I couldn't go any further. I put off watching the rest of the series, even though it was like 20 episodes instead of 26, like the last few. 28 for Series 10. It's 26 episodes for 1 to 9, 11 and 17 to 19, and 21 and 22. 23 and 24 23 episodes, because they've got 3 double-length specials as well. And then 10 and 20 also had 28 episodes. Actually, 21 didn't have 26 episodes, it had 18. Although 2 of the episodes on some of the home media releases, 2 of 20s are moved to 21. to make it 26 and 20 respectively. But predominantly 20 is 28 and 18 is only 18. And then 12 to 16 were 20 each. But even though it was only 20, so even though it was only 20 episodes for series 12, I can go past the second. And it was because of those moving faces. And the stories weren't that great either. So it wasn't great for me. I was doing my rewatch. I stopped my rewatch 2 episodes into series 12 and couldn't continue until the pandemic happened. And, at some point in the summer of 2020, there was just a couple of days where I would be, inside, lying on my stomach, facing the other direction to where I am now, towards the James Bond books over here. And I would just maybe while I was doing some drawing, and I would just binge watch the remaining series, restarting series 12, and finishing that one, and then moving on to the CGI series. Those first 5, 12 to 16, were such a chore. But once we got to the Renaissance, things picked up, and some really great stories in that Renaissance period. It's so good. Series 17 to 21. Whilst the best 5 series are 1 to 5, 17 to 21 are the next best 5. Top 10 is the first 5, and 17 to 21, and I'll throw 6 and 7 in at 11th and 12 to round out the top half of the list. 12, the top 12 of 24. The Bravo era had started about 2018, so I was watching some of the new, or at least most of the new stuff. I tried to watch as much as I could. And unlike All Engines Go, I was more concerned about watching the newer stuff then. And like I said, now if I haven't seen all of 24, to finish watching that one at some point as well. Maybe I'll just rewatch that series. But yeah, I think I have seen all of the rest up to 23, not including all of the movies. Only seen a few of those. Still got to watch all of the rest of the movies. I've heard some are amazing, I have seen The Adventure Begins. That was bloody brilliant as well. I think I saw that another holiday. That was on the 2021 holiday, I think, or 2022 holiday. I think it was 22's one after Ning Valley Railway, which we also went for my 23rd birthday in 2022. So went there on my 23rd birthday. It wasn't a Thomas thing, although I did see the Royal Engine book at the shop, and did get one of the envelope things with the Ning Valley Thomas on it. But that was just birthday celebration, going to a heritage railway. We did the same with the Buckinghamshire Railway Centre this year. Not this year, last year, for my 24th. And I think they were also restoring their own Thomas, as well as Metropolitan number 1 as well. So why is it with Thomas's having overhauls when I'm going to visit heritage railways on my birthday? I think that's 2 in a row. Ning Valley's in 22, and then Buckinghamshire Railway Centre's in 23, as well as Metropolitan number 1, one of my all-time favourite engines in real life, alongside the Flying Scotsman, which I think we did see when we went to the National Railway Museum last time in 2019, and maybe as well in 2012, but that would have been when it was under restoration, whilst 2019 it would be more of a, I think it was on show, but still in the restoration hall. Not quite sure. But yeah, one of my favourite engines was Metropolitan 1, and we did see that on the Epping Ongar Railway back when we did Father's Day 2019, and I think it was there for the London Transport weekend in October 2021. One of the few days off I had from work that month. That's a story for another time. But it was visiting for those occasions, certainly for the London Transport weekend one. And yet the Buckinghamshire Railway Centre is its main home, and it was having a bit of a restoration or overhaul at the time we actually went there. Oh well, some other time. I'll see it again. I've still got the Epping Ongar Railway fridge magnet with Metropolitan number 1 on. And that's another big thing with Thomas, as whilst I did have a resurgence in the fandom of the series back from 2018 onwards, and maybe to a slightly bigger extent 2020, and been back into the Thomas fandom ever since. The biggest legacy Thomas has given to me has been my general love of trains and railways. It didn't help that I live not too very far from the West Anglia Main Line in the UK, London, Liverpool Street to Cambridge. It's Cambridge North now, but not that they've renamed it. No, they had the new one further north. So it's actually gone a little bit further. But yeah, London, Liverpool Street to Cambridge North. And I live by that. There's a park I used to go so much. Still go past it frequently. And I filmed in it. I filmed in the park. I've even filmed in the playground. So we've gone to the playground several times back in the youth days, and also walks into town is down a footpath mostly down a footpath by the railway line. It's not the only route, but it's the main one from where I live to town centre. Anyone who's around Bishop Stortford will know what I'm talking about, especially if you're like in the northern parts of the town. And yes, it's the play park near the railway, and the footpath from that park over the railway, past Grange Paddock Leisure Centre, and then you head into town. You pass another. It's a footbridge now since 2012. It used to be a stile and later gate crossing, and then 2012 they replaced it with a bridge. More stories around that. That's for another day. Just to say the reasons why they replaced the stile with the gate crossing, and then the bridge replacing the gate crossing. For both reasons were not very happy ones. But again, those are stories for another time. But yeah, the park and playground near my house, next to the railway, the crossing or bridge, as it later became, over it, crossing Grange Paddocks, passing that, going down the footpath into town, passing another footbridge to Kingsmead Road and King's Court, which goes under an abandoned railway bridge for the old Bishop Stortford to Braintree branch, which goes round the back of my housing estate. And there's some houses further down that have gardens that back onto the old tracks. And according to my mum, when she and Dad were looking for a house around here, one of the ones they considered was one of those houses down, which all has the railway going, where the railway ran through, is now part of the gardens of those houses, and some other houses on the other side. They went with another house further up, which is great because I love this house. But I know it's been my house for 25 and a half years almost, so of course I bloody love it. But yeah, that's a really cool fact. So we have an abandoned railway. I want it to reopen, but it probably won't. At least not how it would have been like back at the time. We can only dream. But yeah, having the plane park by the railway, a footpath down into town alongside it, another footbridge over the railway to another part of another housing estate nearby, which goes under a abandoned railway bridge as well, because you go one over the main line, and then you go under what used to be the branch line. So all of that, and then there's another big park for event that also has events and stuff, and carnivals, and just a big, massive, wide open field, part of the castle park now, and the railway just goes past that, and it's just so freaking cool. And then the station, the station. I mean, it's granted it's not the most pleasingly architecture, especially since half of it got modernised a few years ago. I think it's about 10 years ago now, the redeveloped station opened. And I think before that, it actually looked even worse. So actually, I think the new one looks better. But the fact that the station is so important because it gets most, if not almost all, the Stansted Express services to Stansted Airport. We are so close to the airport. We're the biggest major town to it. So we're kind of a big, important station on the line, serving the nearest town to Stansted Airport. Stansted Mount Fidget. You're still village status. And even if you were town, Stortford's a bit bigger. And all the Cambridge trains stop here, unless there's a problem on the line, of course. And then most, if not almost all of the Stansted ones, during the pandemic, all of them stopped at Stortford and Harlow. Or almost all of them stopped at Harlow, at least Harlow Town, to be precise, 2 stations. The other one's Thunbnail. But yeah, R1 was such a big deal, and it still is a big deal, and it's so cool. And it even has now the terminating services from Stratford that they introduced about 2011, I think. Initially, there was Stratford to Stansted Airport, but I think it was modified to be Bishop Stortford, and it was a more. I think once they got to that one, it was a more solidified service, because I'm not quite sure what it was like before, but I don't think it was quite as. I'm not sure. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. But it wasn't as regular, or it wasn't as well used. And then once the services terminated at Stortford, it became more of a regular, frequent service, which was great. Yeah, important station, and it's just so cool. I've worked at the WH Smiths down there for a while. October at time of recording, tomorrow, October 10th, would be the second year anniversary of being there. If I was still there, I left earlier this year because things were getting a bit stressful and a bit tense up there, and yeah, it wasn't as fun as it used to be. To quote Tegan in Doctor Who Resurrection of the Daleks, it stopped being fun. At another place now in Stortford. It's not by the railway, but I still get to walk past the railway for this one. If I'm going through the park to get into town. So, and even if I was going down the main road, I still get to cross over the railway at one point. So I've got to cross over to get into town. So still getting to cross over it somewhere. And same for walking back. As opposed to the other job I did before WH Smith, where I was going up to the motorway service station, it was as far away from the railway as I could get. Had some other jobs and volunteering as well, where I would cross the railway for, but those would be more brief. Cross the railway and go down the path alongside it, and then turn away down the main path. But the one I'm doing now, I can go straight forward and continue down past the railway a bit more, and then before diverting away and heading more towards the river, but still having the railway kind of within distance. So Thomas and living by a railway line has kind of shaped my love for railways and trains and being into stuff, and like the London Underground. I loved that. Going on that was amazing, and then that kind of inspired my love for that. I'm interested in trains and stuff. I'm not so worried about the mechanics and engineering and stuff, but even the train. I like the train types and stuff, but I'm not quite as well versed on those. What I'm well versed is the routes, the companies, the destinations, the travel, like the trains. I'd be like, oh, that's a such and such type of train, but I'm not quite as well known on those ones. But I'd probably be pretty good at predicting what route it's serving, where it's heading to or from, what possible time it might have been, and who's running this service. And yeah, just have that love for that. And it's sort of partially inspired my love for maps. I love maps as well. That came around a little as well. And then sort of those two kind of merged with my love for the railway maps and the tube map and so forth. And making my own train maps and tube style maps. So yeah, Thomas, as well as living by a railway line and an abandoned railway line to a lesser extent, has kind of inspired my love for trains, transport in general, really. Mostly trains, but also in transport. Maps to a sort of an extent. I mean, I think I also fell in love with them because of the road map atlases that we'd have for the cars, and then I get my own, and who's kind of inspired me to draw my own maps. Ordnance Surveys ones are also great, but I was mostly into the road atlases and also some of the street atlas ones, and which are also really useful, by the way. And then they sort of merged together with the train and tube style maps, and yeah, it's kind of taken off from there. No pun intended. If I was talking about aeroplanes, trams I'm also interested in because they run on rails. They're like trains, and buses as well because they're really important public transport. So I'd say those are my three. I wouldn't say big ones. It'd be trains and trams, but I guess the buses are also quite useful. Not as worried about the planes and the boats, but the road stuff and the rail stuff, definitely, especially the rail stuff. That's great. And yeah, trains, just yeah, trains and railways. I'm railway enthusiastic, not train spotter. Railway enthusiast. If I was a train spotter, I'd know more about which trains were what type. But yeah, railway enthusiast, and absolutely amazing. And for that, I have a lot to thank from you, and living by an active railway line, a main line even, as well as an abandoned line. But that's one of the biggest things that I take away from watching you back in the day. And yeah, you've helped formed my love of trains and railways and train and railway maps. And yeah, without you, that wouldn't have happened, and I don't know what I'd be without that. And just like how I don't know what I'd be without film and TV. Being a fan of film and TV stuff, like half the stuff in this room is either film and TV related or expanded media of. So I want to thank you for all of that, everything you have done, past, present, and future, of course. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of stuff in the future. I still want to watch the rest of those movies, for starters, and rewatch Series 24. And if there was any episodes I haven't seen yet, then complete watching the series, complete watching the entire original TV Series 1, minus the films. Which, again, like I said, got to finish watching the films as well. So yeah, still plenty of stuff for the future. Maybe All Engines Go as well. We'll see how that goes. So yeah, I've got a lot to thank you for. And of course, the Ertl die-cast toys. I used to love collecting these, and the wooden railway ones. Oh, some best toys of my childhood were these Ertl Thomas toys. I collected, I think, a big chunk of them over the years. I don't know exactly how much my collection comes to, in terms of how much of it was released, but it was definitely a huge chunk. I will not be selling a single one anytime soon, by the way. Don't get any ideas. Or giving away either. And I'm hoping to keep these on to give to my kids to play with, actually, when sometime into the future. Again, something else that might happen in the future is to pass on the toys, the stories, the journey to the next generations. Just like how the series continue, in whichever form it takes, continues to inspire the current young generation. And for 80 years almost in the books, and for now 40 years on television, and I suppose almost 25 for film, if I was doing film and TV separately. Magic Railroad will be 25 next July, so for 24 years in film, 40 in TV, and 39, nearly 39 and a half for prose, you have been keeping the hearts and minds of children safe. Thank you, Thomas the Tank Engine. Happy 40th birthday to the television series, and the countdown to the 80th anniversary of the books, and I suppose the 25th anniversary for the first film, begins as well. So, yeah, celebrations, I guess. Have a happy birthday. You more than deserved it. You are, without question, a really useful engine. And to quote the end of Thomas and the Magic Railroad, and so that brings us to the end of our story. It's time for us to all go home now. Just like Thomas. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the Nick Payne YouTube channel.